All right, everybody, welcome back.
Hello.
We are Natalie and Mike, and we are back for a third episode of us watching through Mike's playthrough of God of War. So, first of all, thank you for all of the likes and follows and the comments. And we wanted to go over a few of them because there were some questions, and I did promise as well to address any comments. So, and if I forgot to address yours, I'm sorry, and just give me a nudge, and I will make sure to do it next time. But there were some really awesome, encouraging comments, and also some that were asking for clarification on a few things. So one of the first ones that I wanted to go over came from DJ Alexander. I am big on mythology and video games. I didn't know that any of the gods lived after Ragnarok. Can we talk more about that? Yeah, so there is after Ragnarok, which is when all of the gods are destroyed, the world kind of rises again. And then there's Balder, as well as Modi and Magni, and some other more minor gods that come back to live. Kind of the major gods for the Norse pantheon are pretty much done after Ragnarok, or the doom of the gods. But when the world rises again, in what has been argued by some scholars to be kind of like, sort of like the Last Judgment, sort of like a very Christian overtones. There is this, some more minor gods and Balder who come back to live in what's said to be like peace, essentially, in this new world.
Baldur's death precipitates Ragnarok, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so he comes back in after the
Yeah.
world rises.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's where kind of this idea that so all of the myths were written down, about 200 years after Iceland had converted to Christianity, because Iceland converted to Christianity and around the year 1000. And the myths were written down, some of the earliest manuscripts are from the early 1200s. Snorri was from the first half of the 13th century. So that means that these myths were all written down on manuscripts like 200 years after Christianity had been officially adopted and all pagan
Mhm.
practices abolished and basically made illegal, essentially. So we have Christian authors and scribes, who were mostly like monks and priests, writing down these stories about this pagan religion. And so there's this filter that we're viewing Norse mythology from at all times, that we have to question how much of this is actually representative of what the myths actually were prior to, the coming of Christianity, and how much is interference from these Christian authors who are writing them down, because they're based on oral narratives that were passed down orally for generations. But it would be kind of naive to think that there wouldn't be some form of interference. It's like one big long game of telephone. Anyway, one of the kind of arguments about Balder and Balder coming back after Ragnarok is that he's very much a Christ-like figure, and Balder of this
Mhm.
game is very different from the Baldur of mythology, who has
Mhm.
many sort of like Christ-like features. There's the sacrifice of Baldur, effectively, sort of like
Mhm.
death of Jesus and crucifixion and all of that. And then the resurrection, of course, is another big
Ah.
one. Kind of one of the ways that you can sort of see arguably this interference happening. And it also is kind of a nice literary device too. So like Ragnarok being sort of the end of the old faith, and then
Mhm.
the new world rising again is the new Christian world. So this new world
Yeah.
that overtakes the old one, and that's something you see in other religious traditions as well, like in other cultures as well. Sorry, not religious traditions, other cultures, like the Finnish Kalevala. They also have a similar thing where there's like a transition, like where the old religion it leaves and the new one comes in and takes over. Is on our list of games to play after we're done this one. Someone else asking about whether Odin was a good guy, because like the implication in like Marvel was that he was a loving father, more or less, to Thor and Loki. And of course, in the Marvel adaptation, Odin is Loki's father. In the myths, Odin and Loki are blood brothers, and they've sort of known one another since old times. He's not his son. They've just been together for a really long time, and they've known each other forever. Odin is not depicted as a good guy in mythology at all. Like, in fact, like the sagas and even the mythology and some other literature were like that's pretty closely related to the mythology. They don't pull punches in saying that like Odin is not somebody to trust. Like, he is known for giving his favor away, or giving his favor and taking it away like just as quickly. He's really fickle. He's not to be trusted. And yeah, so that's why with the last video, I was like, when how Balder was sort of acting, it reminded me a lot of how Odin is presented. And, he's not really a god you can count on.
Like his main quest is just gaining as much knowledge as possible,
Yeah.
right? So, everything is kind of a means to an end.
Yeah,
In
exactly.
the pursuit of that goal, right? So it
Yeah,
doesn't really matter what.
absolutely. Yeah. And like it's like an obsessive quest for knowledge. Like he's out in the world doing various things. Like he lets himself be like set on fire in one of the poems, basically, and he endures all of these, like he does like a head ransom in another one, and he's constantly doing things, putting himself, of course, is hanging from the world tree, all of these things in the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom, which is one of the things he's a god of. Yeah, he's not. That's kind of his main thing, and everything is a means to that end. He wants to find out what's going to happen with Ragnarok, not because he loves his son Balder so much and because he wants to keep him alive. It's because he wants to gain more information so he can prepare himself for Ragnarok.
He does, like, as well, kind of lead to that, right? Like with is it Sif the wolf, and how what's the wolf?
Which wolf? Fenrir?
Fenrir, not Sif. I'm thinking of Dark Souls. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So yeah, Fenrir, like by binding him with the ribbons or the whatever that was, and
this kind of with something the dwarves made, this like very thin but very strong binding material.
Yeah, but then that was where Fenrir vowed to kill Odin, right? And they fight in Ragnarok.
I can't remember. He does bite off Tyr's hand. I'd have to I don't have the myth right in front of me, the account right in front of me. And but I'll look into that, because now I wonder. But he does bite off Tyr's hand, because he says, I want one of you gods to stick your hand in my mouth as a sign that you're not going to betray me and try anything fishy. And of course they do. They tie him up and he can't get out. And so he bites off Tyr's hand.
He was a good guy, right?
Tyr is said to be a just god. Like he is said to be a reliable god of war.
He's referred to a lot in this game, and
I
believe I haven't played Ragnarok, but I know you meet him in the next game.
Okay, awesome. Well, then we can go more into Tyr then too, because there's a lot of interesting stuff about Tyr, and Tyr literally just means God. It's a name for God in Old Norse, and there's some interesting indications that Tyr used to be sort of like the head of the Norse pantheon before Odin kind of took over. And there's a lot of Odin's nicknames are like Hanging Tyr or something, or like he has all these different names that he goes by, and they often end in Tyr and have some kind of a prefix that varies. Yeah. There was just one more, and they're all excellent questions. This is another excellent one, is that Balder inadvertently meets Kratos because Balder's looking for magic or wisdom that only the Jötnar possess. And so were they known for possessing special knowledge or magic of their own? Specifically, did they have the gift of prophecy, or is this invented for the game? No, that is not invented by the game. That's a really good catch and a great question, because they are known for having the gift of prophecy, and they are known for their connection to the dead. You often see them sitting on like mountains for the dead, and in a way that suggests some access to communication with the dead and magic and prophecy. So it's actually often giants that Odin is going to go and try to talk to in the mythology to try to gain knowledge, because they do have the gift of prophecy. They have special access to knowledge and wisdom, and they're known for that.
Yeah, and Thor did not get along well with the giants, right?
No, that was like his one job, is to protect everybody against the giants.
Protect Asgard from the giants?
Asgard, protect Midgard, kill giants. That's his job description, pretty much.
Was Loki? Was he half giant?
Yes, or was he's half giant. His dad was a giant, and race in the mythology is like patrilineal. So it's what your dad is. So it's not entirely clear what his mom Laufey is, and he does go as Loki, son of Laufey, as opposed to son of his dad, which I think is Farbauti, but he's a giant. So therefore Loki's a giant too. Thor's mom is a giant, but that's a really common thing. Like it's like the gods often procreate with like female giants, but it can't ever go the other way around. It inverts the hierarchy. among these different races of beings, essentially.
Is it similar to the Greek mythology where, like the Greek pantheon, I mean, a lot of that was maybe, like with Zeus and coming down and procreating sometimes
Yeah.
against people's will, but
Yeah.
did that happen? Is there a lot of accounts of that happening in the Norse pantheon
Oh
as
yeah,
well? Or
absolutely. And there's some pretty unambiguous, non-consensual scenes in Norse mythology, especially with Odin, Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, I
And
think a
often
lot of
with
time, same with
yeah.
Zeus as well. It was, he was, in disguise or tricking people or,
Yeah,
things like that
exactly. So
too.
there's a lot of overlap between Odin and Zeus in that way. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Interesting.
there's a really interesting and complicated relationship between the Jötnar and the gods, and even within the gods, which gods actually marry women of the Jötnar and which ones just procreate with them. That indicates a hierarchy among the gods. Yeah, we can also talk more about if people are interested in hearing. So
I mean, Natalie's the expert. So it's a lot of fun though, having her answer the questions at least. So yeah, keep them coming.
Oh, and we're going to be in the same place at some point too. So maybe we'll try to, if
Yeah.
people are interested, like we could even maybe this is the first Mike is hearing about this, but maybe we could try to do a live stream or something like that, or do something on Twitch. Do something on Twitch.
We'll learn how to do it, and then we could figure out how to live stream it and maybe post that and get some real-time questions or something like that for Natalie to answer while I die.
Yeah. We had initially set up a Twitch account, but then because of the time differences, because I'm currently in Iceland and Mike's in Minnesota, we have to kind of contend with that. But that could be something cool to do when we're kind of in the same physical location for a little while. And then once I'm back in Canada, we could see what works best. But and also before we start, I wanted to give a shout out to my daughter, Astrid, who has been doing the editing for us. We are super appreciative of her work and for cutting out all of the fun bloopers and things like that, which maybe we'll feature at a different time. But she makes everything nice and smooth and creates the beautiful finished product that you see, that is without any of the little hiccups and things that the full video has. So thanks, Astrid.
So I mentioned Sif, who's a character in a different video game, but Sif is also a goddess in the Norse pantheon, right? She was Thor's wife.
Yep, Thor's wife.
Her beautiful hair.
Beautiful hair, and her hair is beautiful because she wears this gold headdress that Loki had to procure for her after chopping all of Sif's hair off, Thor getting really angry, and then Loki having to come up with a solution to a problem that he caused, which is the typical cycle of things for Loki. So he goes to the dwarves and then they make this headpiece for Sif. And so she's Sif with the golden hair. Like most goddesses are, she's associated with fertility, which makes her an object of desire for the giants, or the Jötnar, who are in many ways associated with death and infertility. So they really want the goddesses, and it can't ever go that way because that inverts the order of things in the hierarchy of the world of Norse mythology. Male gods could marry and procreate with female giants, but male giants could never marry or procreate with goddesses.
I see.
More dead?
Right? Boy.
Not dead, not dead.
Okay, what do we have here?
Some more Draugrs that we're fighting.
Okay.
We're trying to get over a bridge that collapsed on us. So we'll clear these guys out, and then there's a couple more runes that we'll find. So one of the things I acquired was on your axe, you can equip these runes, which give you specific powerful attacks. And this one, it's kind of an area of effect, blast attack. And you have runic power that you fight. Here I'm doing the Spartan Rage.
Oh, this used to be a marketplace. The giants used to gather here to trade with the gods a long time ago. Wonder if Odin was ever here.
Okay, so it's implying this different past where the gods and giants lived peacefully. Okay. Yeah, in the mythology, they've always been enemies, forever. The giants, the Jötnar represent sort of chaos and
well, Loki's always antagonizing. In particular, Thor, right? He's kind of always trying to play tricks and things like that on him.
I mean, Loki is just antagonizing everybody. There's this great like Norse crisis flowchart you can find out there that like basically everything is both any problem that happens in the mythology is caused by Loki, and then eventually fixed if it's not caused by the other Jötnar, and it's fixed by Loki. So yeah, he both helps and hinders. Well, in reverse order, he hinders and helps the gods. But then
Once
he
he gets
eventually
caught and
exactly
has to.
yeah. Usually it's everything that happens that any kind of jam that the gods have to get themselves out of. It's usually because Loki's got them there, and they get out of it with his help. I just watched The Last of Us, and like I haven't played the game yet. Another game I know I need to add to my list, but like this reminds me of like the different levels of like clickers and yeah, the fungus zombies.
Do you hear that? What is it?
We will see. Stay close.
What is that?
So
Yeah.
someone's singing.
What is that?
Okay, so what I have heard is that they did have some consultants for the language, but that the production was going a little bit faster, I think, than some of the consultation was able to keep up. And so I think that they didn't necessarily consult with, you know, for all of the pronunciations of things. So I didn't catch it. I mean, that could be that maybe that was something.
It was kind of hard to
That
hear
made
with all the
sense.
other noise and crushing stuff.
Exactly. It sounded a little bit like Gollum.
So this was a revenant, another new enemy here.
Seither magic was a real thing that happened in the mythology. And interestingly, like it's something that's associated with women, and Odin gets like called essentially less than a man for participating in it, but it's sort of a shamanistic type of magic and prophetic ritual. But Odin, and he said to have learned it from Freya and the other Vanir.
So there are these chests scattered throughout all over the place, and they've got usually some hack silver, which is like the currency, and other items you can use
Aegir's gold. So Aegir is the personification of the sea.
And they're really mad?
Boy,
Sorry.
Boy.
Imagination.
Yes, a lot of questions. And Kratos does not have much patience, so
Yeah.
it's kind of an interesting dynamic.
Okay.
look here.
Sir,
Little
Sure.
scroll on the ground.
I've seen this language before.
I'm not sure what language it was. Here you can see it's from the Raven Keeper. Where all of the
Okay.
dwarves is secured. They promised them security from hell. Asgard did. That says the Vanir will have no hope of Svartalheim's aid, thanks to Odin's foresight. The elves are remain sufficiently distracted.
Okay.
It's from the Raven Keeper, and Odin was often associated with ravens, right?
Yeah, exactly. He had Hugin and Munin as two ravens, thought and memory.
They-
flew
that's
out.
what that translates to?
Yeah, thought and memory. They flew out and brought him,
Kind of saw everything, right?
exactly, and they brought him back news from all the realms. Again,
It says his name
all
is-
within that like knowledge, right, and wisdom. He needs to know everything that's going on in all of the 9 realms.
Looks like he was in a pretty big battle.
And then another Jötnar shrine about Hrungnir.
Even the world.
Hrungnir, okay. Yeah, he's
Thor
there's a
must
couple of
have smashed his
accounts
head apart.
of him in his duel with Thor.
Hrungnir's body squished him. Idiot.
I like that looked like a picture stone, a rune stone that has, images carved into it.
Yeah, you can see there, it looks like Thor smashed his head.
Okay. Yeah, that's the story. I mean, in a nutshell, he does he has a duel with Thor. Thor lives though, but Hrungnir does not. Thor wins the duel pretty decidedly in what is his typical move, and that's killing giants, protecting the gods and the humans from giants, or Jötnar. I always say giants, but I'm kind of loath to use that translation because it doesn't really, I think, capture what
They weren't
Jötnar
always
were.
physical giants, right? Some were,
Yeah.
but
I think that makes you
not
think of
all.
like like somehow is really distinct from gods and humans. And, you know, as you can see, like half the gods like have a giant parent, a Jötn parent, or are married to one of Jötnar if they're among a certain class of gods, or the Vanir specifically. So like Njord is married to Gadi, who's a daughter of a giant, so therefore she's a giant.
In looking at that last shrine, they made, I say it, I can't say it.
Hrungnir,
Uh,
yeah.
Is that over
They
there?
made him out of stone and ice, so giants could be made as well as being just born, like normal.
Yeah,
Or
that's a little bit of a spin on the myth. The myth itself, like each one of them gets to have a second at the duel, and they like make Hrungnir's second out of clay, and his second like wets himself when he sees Thor and is completely useless. So I think maybe that's sort of a spin on that myth.
I'll kill that
Maybe.
guy.
Yeah.
Understand.
But I can fight now.
You will stay out of it, boy. Speak no more of this.
Oh, some really
I'm
relatable
trying to-
parenting moments here. An apple. Okay. Ethan's apples. Or Idun apple. Yeah, so
Choice of
Idun is
food of the
another goddess of fertility, married to the god Bragi, was the god of poetry, and it was her apples that kept the gods immortal. So I mean, they weren't inherently immortal; like they had to eat these apples. One of the myths in which Loki gets the gods into a bit of trouble is when he gets himself captured by a giant and promises that he'll make it so that this giant can procure Ethan's apples in exchange for his freedom. And he does that, and the giant gets the apples, and all the gods go old and gray. And of course, Loki then has to get them out of that mess too, and he does. So one of the many myths in which Loki gets them out of a mess that it's their fault.
he created.
It's his fault that they're in the first place. Exactly.
Atreus just having to go. So Draugr and Revenant are synonymous?
Yeah, I mean they're used synonymously. I mean, Brokkr does kind of mean revenant, but I mean the game is obviously like they need to have multiple different levels of of being of this
Enemies.
type. So of enemies, so it makes sense why they would do that and make distinctions among them.
Tough stuff.
There will be more.
What's that smell?
So continuing on, we're going to meet some people here, some
Okay,
reavers.
the flies buzzing
Hellwalkers? They're untouched. Look.
and the hellwalkers.
Someone start the fires. Sigmund, you're not.
Is that another word for the Draugr?
Without me.
I don't know.
Just-
I don't know if hellwalkers is
Us?
something is a
What if they change like the others?
effectively a
We'll have
kenning
to keep
for
them alive. Strip
the
off
very god
their
or
meat.
not. It might, maybe it could very well be, but
This fight is mine alone.
hell being the realm of the dead, and also one of Loki's.
Looks like these guys have maybe resorted to cannibalism. I imagine that was probably pretty frowned upon back in those societies as well.
No, actually, I would feel like it was, but I don't know much about like perceptions of cannibalism.
Atreus.
It's an interesting question, though. Uh-oh, Atreus is pinned.
Boy.
Boy. In shock. A tender moment.
Close your heart to it.
Came back. They came back.
It is finished.
Oh,
I want to leave here.
oh,
Collect yourself. We
Yeah.
must find a way out.
what a tough time.
And I think he struggles with it. In the first episode, he was
Shame.
unable to kill the deer too that they were
Right,
hunting
yeah.
before they fought the
Yeah,
death merchant
Go
troll.
drop the chain.
a big step up from deer.
Yeah. It's one of the better parts about this story is just, I mean, it's all about Kratos and Atreus and their relationship and kind of how it
Atreus.
evolves. And
The chain.
The chain. Right.
You're in your head, boy. Let it go.
Supposed to be some kind of a literary trope of some kind, like
I know, I had to do it.
the man who's the father figure who's seen too much and been through too much and closed his heart out to love, and then a child figure,
Give
again,
up
thinking
this
The Last
easily.
of Us and
So close to the start.
Wait, no.
many other
I'm
things.
not giving up. I can do this. I just have to, you know, catch my breath. Come on up. I'm ready.
so I meet another traveler on the
Okay.
road here.
See what this is.
Eventually, I got to go grab a mask.
What are the masks used for?
They're just artifacts, so just little Easter egg things that you can find. I think you get experience rewards if you collect all of them or something like that.
Okay.
They're not necessary for the game. They're all these little Easter eggs and different things that you can collect, killing a certain number of enemies, like revenants
Sure.
or trolls, or collecting the masks, things like that.
Okay.
It's because she's scared of something in the trees over there.
There's what now?
Yeah, what kind of animal is this?
I don't know.
Dragon? A bird?
Father,
Giant
He's
bird?
got a
lots of those
beak.
trees on the other side of the bridge. The ones with the white shrubs.
So Atreus knows what it needs.
Yeah, so we get another hint as to who he might be. Here he's able to connect
Connection.
and understand with animals.
Yeah.
Be smart or something, boy. You
Okay.
are a boy, aren't you? Ha!
Does she have a name?
I don't know. Rude bastard ain't ever asked mine, so I ain't ever asked hers. Ah! Ha!
What's yours?
Brok.
Be calm.
Oh, okay.
Of course.
That makes sense.
Hey, you're not gonna believe me, but that
Oh, I know what
axe
he's
you
gonna say.
got, it was me what made her. Me and my brother. I can enhance her for you right now if it so pleases you, son
Yeah,
of
the
a bitch.
dwarves, like Brok and
So what
Eitri,
say you?
are known for making,
All right. I do not believe you.
you know, some of the gods'
Come,
greatest
boy.
treasures, and including weapons. So like I
There's a
said
rune in
before,
the shape of a fork under the
they
grip.
make the hair for Sif, the headdress, and they also make, you know, like Mjolnir and the, you know, gloves and belt of strength for Thor, and a lot of different other things as well. Like Freya has a necklace that's made by the dwarves called Brisingamen, and there's various other things. They make all the treasures for the dwarves, and the dwarves are interesting because they
Well,
can both help and hinder the
expect an
gods.
improvement.
So, like, they can be kind of mischief makers sometimes, and you see them doing things like, you know, causing the
So,
death
where's
of
the other half
the
of it?
wisest being that the gods
All my young
created.
brothers got it.
Evidently,
But I
because
got
they
all
were
the talent.
they thought it would be fun. But they also help out the gods
Sure,
in a lot of
I'm
ways.
open.
So Brok means, it comes from the Old Norse word Brokkr, which means the one who is like a blacksmith, essentially, the person who forges. So
Oh,
Sindri means spark. So that makes, but I can't
okay.
remember Eitri.
I'm not sure.
Dude, come over here.
He's a cursing.
he's a little rude and grouchy, but Atreus
Yeah,
likes him
a little
anyway.
rough around the edges. Anyway,
And Odin often wore masks and disguised himself, right?
Odin absolutely disguised himself. Like, he would wear like a hood or a cloak or something and disguise himself in some way or another.
One left.
Or change his appearance. You know, he was capable of doing that as well. He never really went by, when he was traveling out in the world looking for wisdom and stuff, he never went by Odin. He went by a long list of other names, which he recounts in some of the myths, all the different names that he's gone by, which are only some of the ones he says that he's gone by. Mead in the mythology is something that, well, Odin, again, like, he helps to procure the mead of poetry, which is a mix of that. So there was that wisest being that the dwarves were responsible for killing. And it's the blood of that wisest being mixed with honey is the meat of poetry. So whoever drinks of that is a poet. And Odin is responsible for bringing that back to the gods. So mead is associated with poetry. Odin is also the god of poetry and wisdom and war and death and a lot of things.
We're continuing on the road here, getting a little bit closer to the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Never been this close to the mountain before.
And that's where they're headed.
It looks so big.
Yep. Well, they think.
They think.
I should almost
Okay.
here to
Ooh.
see it.
You'll see.
What are the statues on either side?
Boy,
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
written along the side.
This is a puzzle though.
What does it
It's
say?
a
As we
riddle
are, we two, we three.
puzzle that you
Alone
solve in the
can never
game,
be.
and then the answers rune at the very
Maybe
end
there's a clue
here.
around here.
So once
Okay.
I get through the puzzle, you'll see. I'm not sure what the statues are, if they're depictions of elves or what, but that's a good question.
It's not the way, Kratos.
So we line up the different discs
okay.
there, and we see the
Boy.
final rune.
What do those runes say?
Oh, it says family. That's not a clue. It's the answer. What I alone can never be. Right?
Use your knife and trace
Like
the runes
Loki.
into the sand.
Really?
Super smart, cunning.
Pencil.
Yeah, they
Something
often
happened.
allude to how he can just understand things, like
Yeah.
like the runes. I think his mom taught him some, but
It worked.
certainly not as much as he is able to understand. So we're coming to the end of this episode.
All right.
Next one is going to be filled with a lot of good stuff. I think you're going to be happy with
Boy,
it, Manly,
Excellent.
and
these tracks.
who we meet, and
Ooh.
there's going to be a lot of
Boar.
good.
Okay.
But
And now
I'll
now I think I might know.
It is
There's a
important for
boar.
warrior to keep his skills sharp.
Maybe, or maybe that's a red herring. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, you'll see. I think you'll like it. There's going to be a lot of good lore points
Right.
and good myths to discuss here in the next episode.
Awesome. Well, great. Thanks for checking us out and joining us. And we'll be back, in another week. We're kind of trying to do these about like once a week as we're sort of able. The Easter holiday kind of interfered with our usual production schedule, but we'll try to get back on track and keep on going. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks everyone. We appreciate all the support, and
Yeah.
keep leaving the comments and questions if you have anything you want Natalie to address,
Yeah. And
or if
give
I
me
missed anything in the game, any good lore points that I missed.
exactly.
That's possible.
And if I forgot to answer a question, it was not on purpose, and feel free to remind me. So, all right. Well, we'll see you all next time.